My name is George Kirby, and I'm here in New York asking one question, and that is, when you hear the names Amos and Andy, what do you think about?
To me, Amos and Andy was a thing to look forward to, because the fact is, they was our little heroes, you know.
Oh, Amos and Andy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, laughs, a lot of laughs.
Well, I remember my parents didn't like it. They thought it poked fun at black people a little bit too much. But I guess being a generation removed, I could see the humor in it.
Nostalgia. The TV show.
Gee, it's been a long time since I've seen that one.
If you call somebody Amos and Andy, it was a put down.
It was a good show. It was a lot of entertainment, but still it projected the wrong image to me.
I go back a little before him. I remember them from radio. Very funny, very, very humorous.
I think it was a very amusing show. It stereotyped a little bit, but it's. I think we need to bring back more quality entertainment like that back to today's entertainment world.
Basically, if you brought it back, you'd have a lot of response, good response.
The Walk of Fame, Hollywood's tribute to the greats of show business, cast in brass and set in concrete. Here they are for all time. Bing Crosby, he's here. Walt Disney, yep. Charlie Chaplin, a late arrival. We also have the pioneers of radio and TV, Burns and Allen, Lucy and Desi, and a star for each of the creators of the radio classic Amos and Andy, Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll. And that's good. They should be there. Now, what about the black cast of the TV series? Where's the star for Tim Moore, Spencer Williams Jr., Ernestine Wade, Alvin Childress? Sorry, they're simply not here. Come to think of it, Hollywood has always fallen short when it comes to honoring black artists. And a generation of Americans have never heard of Amos and Andy. Tonight, you will enjoy a rare privilege. You will see the black TV cast of Amos and Andy, a program not broadcast since 1966. Why is this show no longer on the air? Why is any show more than 30 years old still considered too hot to handle? What was Amos and Andy? Who created it? What was it like? Who loved it? Who hated it? And why can't we see it? For the next hour, sit back and enjoy an amazing chapter in American history as we explore the story of Amos and Andy, the anatomy of a controversy. Chicago, where it all began. The 20s roared, the stock market soared, the illegal booze flowed like a river. It was a time of opportunities in a new medium, radio.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men?
Wheaties, Breakfast of Champions, bring you the thrilling adventures of Jack Armstrong, the all-American boy. The Mercury Theater on the air.
You know, most live radio was broadcast from the better hotels, but Drake was the home of WGN and the first Gosden Corral show with black dialect, Sam and Henry. The year was 1926.
All righty, gentlemen. May I have a level now, please?
Okay, Mike.
Andy's right here like this. Andy say, who's scared? Me? Ha, ha, ha. A little.
Mr. Gosden, may I have a check from you now, please, sir? And then we have Amos.
Amos about here, Mike. How's the balance on Amos?
Then we've got Kingfish, Mike.
Kingfish down here. Don't forget we is all brothers in that great fraternity that missed it nice of the sea. How do he sound?
In 2 short years, Gosden and Corral had graduated from WGN and Sam and Henry. They were doubtful about their future. They didn't have to be. Their greatest success lay just around the corner, using the same format and new characters. Chicago, my hometown, the home of radio's longest-running comedy series, Amos and Andy. The show opened to chilly reviews in January 1928. The reviews changed, but that Chicago winter is still a killer.
You know, of course, that there's a shortage in women.
I'll say the one I took out last night only come up to my belt buckle.
This is Chicago's Merchandise Mart, right at the edge of the Chicago River. For more than a quarter of a century, the Amos and Andy radio show was broadcast from here. The Mart opened in January 1930 as the world's largest office building. WMAQ radio still originates within these walls. 1930 was a big year for the team. They were on NBC network radio 5 nights a week for $100,000 a year. Of course, they ended up in Hollywood, where they made their first motion picture for RKO. Check and Double Check was the studio's biggest hit until King Kong topped it in 1933. But Gosden and Carell didn't like the picture. They stayed almost exclusively on the radio and never made another feature film in blackface.
Hey, get that thing out of here.
Yes, Mr. Yes. Amos, as president of the Fresh Air Taxi Cab Company, I'm telling you to get behind this thing and push it out of here.
I ain't gonna do it.
Let me at that thing. I'll fix it. Amos, look out.
These two were the oddest couple you could ever find. Freeman Gosden was born a Southern aristocrat in Richmond, Virginia. His father was a Civil War hero. Charles Carell began as a bricklayer from Peoria, Illinois. They drifted separately into show business as performers in amateur minstrel shows. Rich Carell tells of their first meeting.
Sure, in 1919, my father met Freeman Gosden when they were working for a home talent show company out of Chicago. Dad was a musician who was a piano player, and Freeman played ukulele and sang, but that's not how they got together. They got together quite by accident. They met in Durham, North Carolina in 1919 when Dad was having some problems with a show he was putting on, and Freeman was kind of sent out to troubleshoot. And Freeman came in to help out, especially with the singing, and because of their directing of this type of musical show, they began to realize that they could get together and sing and perform themselves. And they were singing and telling jokes and doing little bits and pieces. And the president of WGN came to them and said, look, why don't you guys do a comic strip character, something that's popular in the funnies? Why don't you do the Gumps, which was like kind of a version of Little Abner, that type of thing. And they considered doing it, and they said, well, you know, I guess we could tell jokes and kind of interact. And then Freeman said, well, now wait a minute, I got a better idea. I'm a Southerner, I was brought up in the South, and I can do a black dialect. Charlie's toured the South a lot on the home talent show circuit. Why don't we do a couple of black characters? Because I think we have a better feel for that. I mean, I think we sound more like those characters. So, I mean, it was really a whim that Sam and Henry got started at all. It was basically pitched to Carell and Gosden as the Gumps and became Sam and Henry because Freeman thought they could do black dialects better, which was almost accidental. I'll tell you one thing really interesting that Dad told me about he and Freeman was that every year on December 31st at midnight, they would always make a point to be together and celebrate the new year. They would toast each other and say, well, pal, you know, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. This can't keep going. They did it 33 times.
Gosden and Carell weren't the first white men to imitate black men. The first was probably Richard Burbage, the man who introduced Shakespeare's Othello back in 1610. And some fellow named Grosvenor. Yes, Grosvenor. He was doing imitations of slave songs in Boston in 1799. He called himself Orinoco, the royal slave. By the 1830s, black songs were a fixture of white entertainment. And in 1843, Billy Whitlock formed the first traveling minstrel show, the Virginia Minstrels. Many a famous white man made his name in blackface. There was George M. Cohan, Al Jolson, Eddie Cannon, and George Jessel. This was long before they showed their white faces to the public. Then there was Bert Williams. Now I know what you're thinking. Wasn't he black already? What was he doing in blackface? I'll tell you. Starring in an all-white review on Broadway, The Ziegfeld Follies. And the 1920s saw an explosion of black entertainers whose impact is still being felt today. There was Bessie Smith, Fats Waller, Billie Holiday, Josephine Baker, Ethel Waters, Duke Ellington, Rex Ingram, Paul Robeson, Louis Armstrong. So many stars, so much talent. Among the headliners of Broadway's Blackbirds of 1928 were Bill Robinson, Adelaide Hall, and a man we're going to hear from later, Tim Moore. In silent pictures, there was this slender young man.
Spencer Williams, who played Andy, looked a lot like my father, blacked up. That was a very strange thing, but he was a terrific Andy, I thought. Now, Alvin Childress, who played Amos, seemed to always have less to do with the show, but you got to remember in radio by that point, the radio Amos had less to do with things. I mean, he was a successful businessman. He was a happily married family man. He had children. He was a good citizen. He was a good community member, and basically he was the straight man. And as we know, unless it's a comedy team of just two people, the straight man always has less to do. The people who were in the radio show, the Black Cast, who were people aside from Amos, Andy, and the Kingfish, just moved over to do the television show. And as we all know, people like Johnny Lee was not only terrific on radio, he was even better on film because he could look as crazy as he sounded. He was a terrific actor, you know. And Ernestine Wade was perfect. Lillian Randolph, she was terrific. I mean, all those people moved right over. They had a built-in cast. So they just moved him over to the TV show, and they were terrific.
Let's turn to that amazing day when the white cast of Amos and Andy stepped aside to let the black cast take over. Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll spent 4 years searching for their black actors. Here is the result.
This fella, Spencer Williams, actually comes to life as Andrew H. Brown, and I venture to say that 3 or 4 seconds after you see him, you will always think of him when you think of Andy. And to prove what I'm talking about, here he is, Andrew H. Brown. Hello. This next character we were a long time finding because the Kingfish is really somebody. He's a fellow that has to have a twinkle in his eye, a smile on his face, and a sort of a devil in his heart. A fellow who is always looking out after his brothers, but first and last after himself. Now, when this fellow comes out and when he's on television, I think you'll realize that this really is the Kingfish. In fact, we predict that all the characters we have, when you see them in the television film, they'll all come to life in front of your eyes. So, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Tim Moore, the man that plays the part of George Stevens, Kingfish of the Lodge.
Don't forget, we is all brothers in that great fraternity, the Mystic Knights of the Sea.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank our cast for coming down here and making this personal appearance so that you can meet them before you see them in the television show. So without further ado, we would like to say, let's put on the Amos and Andy show, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome back. Back to 1950, as a matter of fact. Weren't many blacks on TV then, and none behind the scenes. In those days, we mainly played funny maids and chauffeurs. There was no civil rights movement, no black power, no Supreme Court decision. There was no logical way for television to develop an all-black cast program, no way but one. What began as a dilemma for the network was how to get Amos and Andy on TV. It became the golden opportunity for a group of little-known black actors to create a lasting impression on a new medium. I want you to see Amos and Andy the way I saw it back in 1951. We've taken the highlights of a real classic show, Kingfish Sells a Lot. If you love it or if you hate it, it kept the country laughing.
Oh, hello, folks. I was just over visiting my old friend, the Kingfish, and he's having his troubles again.
Look, George, you're not a real estate man. You're not a businessman. And you don't know anything about investment.
Oh, is that so? You see this head here of mine? Well, there's a lot of ideas growing in this head.
Well, if what's growing on the top is any sign of what's growing inside, it must be pretty bad. You know, George, I wouldn't feel so bad about it. But this is one of the things you said would bring us security in our old age.
Well, honey, there's still hope.
Outside of the $50 we got from that movie company when they used the lot as a location for a picture, this lot has been a dead loss to us.
I still see that's valuable property. And someday they're going to develop that whole area with new homes. You wait and see.
As I was saying, George, we were counting on this lot for security. And I don't know what we're ever going to be able to do with it.
Well, honey, maybe we can sell it.
Well, you bought it, George. You sell it.
Hi, Kingfish.
Hi, Calhoun.
What we got here?
Well, Calhoun, years ago, I bought a lot up the country for $1,000, and it didn't pan out. So I'm trying to figure out a way that I can get my money back.
Wow. $1,000.
Now, don't let that fool you, Calhoun. A couple of years ago, there was a motion picture company making a picture in this era, and they wanted to use my property, and that's what they done. That's just the front of the house you're looking at.
Oh, I see.
Here's a picture of the back.
Kingfish, you ain't thinking about trying to sell that to somebody as a house, is you?
No, Calhoun, I just figured on selling this country lot to somebody, and they can do whatever they want with it.
Oh, well, now, the only person that would go up in the wilds of the country like that is somebody that wants to live like a hermit. You know, somebody that's nervous living in the city and wants to get out in the country to relax.
Yeah. Somebody that's nervous in the city. Calhoun, I think I'll go and have a talk with my old friend, Fidgety Brown.
Well, we ready for the Panamora now, Kingfish?
That's right, Andy.
Wow. Kingfish is even more than I expected. I can hardly wait to get inside to see how the rest of the place looks.
Now, wait a minute, Andy. We ain't got no time for that.
Why not?
Well, you know, Andy, you ain't the only fella that's interested in buying the place. I got another twitcher lined up that's going to drop by the lodge hall at 12 o'clock to put up a deposit check.
Well, I can tell you now, Kingfish, it's a deal.
Well, then we'll rush on back to the lodge hall and sign the deed.
Yeah, you take this one, Ivy.
Yes. Come on.
Scrape your feet so you don't get the place dirty, Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Close the door, Lightning. We don't want to get no flies in here. Put the door right down there. Good old fresh air. Holy smoke, Lightning. We done walked right through the house out into the yard.
Yeah, we sure did.
You know, Lightning, when I get my furniture here and get moved in and settled and everything, well, I'm going to have this whole backyard landscaped. Well, I might even put in a swimming pool. Ooh-wee. Yeah. Holy Smoke, we walk right through again, Lightning. I'll tell you what you do this time. You go back through the front door and walk slow.
Yes.
Well, what'd you run into this time, Lightning?
Missed it again.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do this time, Lightning. You walk around back there, and I'll walk around out here. And we'll check with each other and see what we run into.
Okay, Mr. Andy.
What do you think, Lightning?
This sure is a thin house.
Kingfish, if you don't give me my money back, I'm going to punch you in each eye. Then I'm going to punch you in the mouth. Then I'm going to take a stick and crack your head. In other words, I'm going to open everything that's closed and close everything that's open.
Take it easy, Andy. You do anything like that, I'm going to have you in court for assault and battery.
Well, I won't hit you, Kingfish, but I'm going to get me a lawyer and sue you for fraud.
Go ahead. You ain't got a leg to stand on.
Okay, we'll see about that. Kingfish, for 20 years, you've been bamboozling me. But I'm telling you right now, this is your last boozle.
Are you coming there, Calhoun?
Well, I think that does it, Kingfish. Now, did you got the other end of that hose clear around there?
Oh, yes, all covered up.
Well, you sure Andy coming out here, ain't you?
Oh, yeah, Lightning told me that he forgot the chairs and he's driving up here to pick them up. Ought to be here any second.
Well, we all set here. We ready for him, all right.
That must be him now. Now, Calhoun, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Now, the signal for the first gush is when I say something about this beautiful country.
All right, I got you.
Oh, come right in, Brother Andy.
Kingfish, I ain't talking to you except in court. And besides, you is trespassing on my property that I'm going to make you take back.
Now, wait, Brother Andy. The reason I is up here, I decided to give you your money back.
Oh, you did, huh?
Yeah, I realized that I charged you too much for the place. Because actually, there's nothing around here but beautiful country. Well, I'll be doggone. Andy, you lucky stiff. This is oil.
Yeah, there ain't no two ways about it.
Yeah, and that's even better than that Texas stuff. It's coming out of the ground already refined.
There's just one thing that sort of bothers me a little, Kingfish. I ain't never heard of oil shooting out of the ground without drilling or nothing.
Well, Andy, I know the phase of that. You see, there's three kinds of oil wells. There's the gusher, the oozer, and the squirter. You got a squirter here, son. Now, Andy, I want to understand this now. As I gets it, you want to keep the lot.
Oh, sure. Now, I don't care whether there's a house on it or not.
Well, then, Andy, keep from having any misunderstanding. I think it's only fair and square that you signed this paper saying you ain't going to sue me no more.
Well, that's all right with me. Well, there he is, Kingfish.
Well, thank you, Brother Andy.
You know, Kingfish, I think I'll put a marker here where this squirter is.
Yeah, Andy, I'll see if I can help you. Oh, I got one, Andy. A little tree.
Yeah, imagine that, oil in this beautiful country.
I wish that oil well had some sense and would stop pumping. Come in.
Oh, pardon me. I'm looking for a Mr. George Stevens.
Well, I is George Stevens.
My name is Brokaw, and I am with the Suburban Development Company. According to the record, you own a certain piece of property just up in the country.
Well, what about it?
Well, we are in the business of developing suburban areas, and we are building a 600-home tract in that locality. We would like to purchase your lot.
Oh, me. Holy mackerel. Here I done hold a darn thing for 20 years, and now it happened.
What do you mean?
Well, I just sold a lot yesterday. But tell me, how much would the lot be worth to you?
Well, we have paid as high as $2,000 for similar lots.
Look, mister, I'll get the lot back. You call by a little later this afternoon, and I'll have it for you.
All right, Mr. Stevens, I'll do that. We want to acquire these lots as soon as possible. Goodbye.
Well, goodbye.
Hello?
Look, Andy, I got something I want to tell you. And I'd like for you to get over here as quick as you can.
Okay, Kingfish, I'll be over.
Oh, come right in, Andy. Have a seat, son. I want to talk to you.
Well, what's up, Kingfish?
Well, Andy, I couldn't sleep last night. My conscience bothered me about selling you that lot. So I decided to give you your money back.
Give me my money back?
Look, son, in a weak moment, I rigged up that oil thing. There ain't nothing there but a hose under the ground with a bicycle pump on the other end. Andy, there's no oil there.
What?
Andy, here's your $1,000. Now, you give me the deed, and we'll let bygones be bygones. All right, son, here, you can just sign the transfer there. There's your $1,000, and now we're all back just like we started.
Yeah, but Kingfish, there's one thing that still puzzles me. You ain't never had no trouble with your conscience before.
Well, Andy, I'm going to tell you the truth. You're going to find it out sooner or later. I was right about that land 20 years ago. They are going to develop it. And I got a chance to sell it to the Suburban Development Company for $2,000. Matter of fact, Mr. Brokaw will be out here this afternoon, and I'm going to close the deal.
Well, if I was you, Kingfish, I wouldn't bother about waiting for Mr. Brokaw.
And why not?
Because I sent him over here in the first place. I is the Suburban Development Company.
Andy, you double-crossed me. How could you do underhanded like that?
Oh, me. I love that beautiful country.
We'll be right back. Amos and Andy became the surprise TV hit of 1951. One of its brightest stars was Broadway's Alvin Childress.
Hello, folks. I'm Amos. You'll have to excuse me. I'm in a hurry today. I got to go down to the court. Yes, folks, my old friend the Kingfish is in trouble again.
Well, I read from Mr. Jim Fonda. His name's James Fonda. And he was just... You know? Well, anyhow, he stopped his interview. He had, I guess 10 or 15 people there. He stopped, called out here to California, said, I got your man. He can play any role. Negroes that got better parts than Amos and Andy ever got in their lives. Doctors, lawyers, school teachers, and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I think the best little old scene I had in all of Amos and Andy was with Arbadella interpreting the Lord's Prayer to her.
The first line of the Lord's Prayer is this: Our Father, which art in heaven. That means Father of all that is good, where no wrong can dwell. Then it says, Hallowed be thy name. That means we should love and respect all that is good.
I see.
And then it says, Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That means, my darling, as we clean our hearts of all hate and selfishness and fill our hearts with love, the good, the true, and the beautiful, then earth, where we are now, will be just like heaven.
That would be wonderful, Daddy.
And then it says, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Now that means, my darling, to ask God to help us do and see and think right, so that we will neither be led or tempted by anything that is bad. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Now that means, darling, that all the world And everything that's in it belongs to God's kingdom. Everything. Your mommy, your daddy, your little brother, your sister, your grandma, you, and everybody. And as we know that, and act as if we know it, that, my darling daughter, is the real spirit of Christmas.
That's good, Daddy.
George Stevens, it was bad enough opening Andy's letter. You ain't thinking about jipping him out of that coin, is you?
Who, me? Innocent Stevens? I'll say I is.
Broadway comedian Tim Moore made a perfect kingfish.
I'm going to take my life savings and invest it in a business. Then I'm going to move out of here.
You is?
Yeah.
Hooray!
What's that?
I thought I see the parade going by. Now, you see, Andy, first, the atom splits into what they call a monocle. And then the monocle busts and breaks down into what they call neutron, proton, fig Newtons, and morons.
George, what kind of man is you? Do you expect me to support you?
Well, honey, that is, you see, Calhoun, you got to help me.
What?
Johnny Lee, the voice of Walt Disney's Brer Rabbit, was the crooked lawyer Calhoun.
Do you think that me, Algonquin J. Calhoun, is weak enough to pull a double cross on one of my dearest friends? Do you think that I is low enough to stoop to a shady piece of chicanery like that? Do you think that I is spineless enough? Well, just call me Jellyfish. I intend to offer conclusive proof to that statement. Your Honor, you can pull the trigger of this revolver as much as you please, and it will not.
I'm all ready, Mama.
Radio veteran Ernestine Wade continued her role of Sapphire.
Here comes a bride.
Honey, would you cut that out? The neighbors will think the cat fell in the washing machine again.
Now, look, George, I don't want any argument. It's about time you met some decent people instead of that horrible, uncouth group you associate with. It would do you good to meet a man with accomplishments like Mr. Van Pelt.
Well, I done met all the accomplished people I want to know.
Like Andrew Brown, for instance.
Yeah, like Andrew Brown.
Well, what, may I ask, has he ever accomplished?
Well, he, just yesterday, he had a run of 13 balls in the side pocket without once leaning on the pool table. Look, honey, I gotta go out. It's about our anniversary.
What do you mean it's about our anniversary?
I can't tell you, but you're gonna see something tonight that's gonna make your eyes pop out.
Good heavens! What on earth would George be doing with a gun?
The late Ernestine Wade recalled how she joined the radio cast in April 1939.
They needed some music and, wedding music. Mm-hmm. So we prepared some songs and we went out and sang our songs and they were chosen. Not they, but one was chosen, which was, Oh, Promise Me. And after we finished singing, Gosden said, can you gals do lines? So we both said yes. He didn't say, have you ever done any? He said, can you do them? And I thought I could. So he said, well, what I want is something like a jitterbug. All you have to do is say, I do. They were going to go, you probably all remember that wedding because it went into time. You remember about whether he was married or whether he wasn't. So I told him I knew just what he meant. And I got the first chance to say, I do. And the next he wanted was someone to scream. The other girl must have been self-conscious because she screamed like a man who was a bass singer. And he looked at her without saying anything, but you could read his face. So he said, well, let's hear you point it to me, let's hear you scream. So later when I went home, I told the family, if it hadn't been for the fact I was in a soundproof studio, every hurry wagon in Hollywood, Bel Air, and points adjacent would have converged on CBS because I screamed the building down. So that's how I got started. I screamed and I sang and I said I do.
Of course, Amos and Andy could have been done with a white cast. A white cast? What am I saying? Yes, a white cast. Like, well, let's suppose we're casting the show ourselves. Now, who better for Kingfish than that man without a job, Richard Nixon?
Now, Sapphire, I want to make this one thing perfectly clear. I'm not a crook.
Hey, this is all right. Now, Sapphire, Betty Davis, of course.
George Stevens, I tell you, this place is a dump. And what a dump.
Now, Andy, how about Archie Bunker, Carol O'Connor? Yeah. Say there now, Kingfish, I know you was cheating me there, so don't try to deny it. I ain't no meathead. No. It worked best as it was meant to be, the first all-black TV series. The first, but not the only. Time marches on and things change. How things change. I'll say one thing for Amos and Andy. They never called each other names like nigger. Well, the modern way might be more relevant, but I don't like it. I wonder what Marlon Gibbs thinks of Amos and Andy, or Red Fox. Let's ask him.
I enjoyed it immensely. I especially enjoyed Kingfish. He represented a lot of people that we knew. Of course, it was a little exaggerated because of the writing, but I thought he was a very natural character and very hilarious. And as a matter of fact, most of the people on the show were. It was a very good cast and very well orchestrated and very believable. I don't think that it reflected the wrong image of black people. I think it was the fact that it was the only image of black people. And in that context, the only image of any people, no show can represent that. So it would come up airing if you took it to task to say this really represents the Italian community or the black community or the Oriental community. No, it couldn't do that. And because that's all we had, then I think the NAACP was really trying to say we needed a balance. Instead of saying that, what they said was this show reflected our people in a negative image because other people see us and think that this is the only way we are.
I don't think people tune in a comedy show for an education. If it had been a documentary, it would have been a different thing. Mm-hmm. But again, all people will scream about things they don't enjoy. You take the Grapes of Wrath and Tobacco Road, there was a lot of static about that. But those people really exist. Their names might not be the same, but their prototypes exist. And there's no need to deny the existence of something just because you don't like it.
I thought it was a situation comedy that depicted black people, some black people, in an element, and it was comedy, man. It was laughs there, and that's what it's all about. Get some laughs, and you're not hurting anyone. Some people said, hey, man, he shouldn't be doing that, but if they look at their mother and father around the house sometime, they see the same things happening, you know, and like I used to sit backstage when Kingfish, I can't think. Tim Moore. I used to stand backstage next to a chair. His wife used to sit backstage in Apollo and all the places we worked in the Chitlin Circuit, and I'd stand backstage with her while he was on stage. So more or less, I learned most of my professionalism watching him perform. Whatever he was doing it for that era. And it made it possible for me to do something so that after me, some other youngsters can do something. And after them, they can do something. So that's where it is, you know. I thought it was a funny show and a funny dude, the whole cast.
Don't go away. Amos and Andy, Anatomy of a Controversy, will be right back.
Kingfish!
There's Andy. I'm getting in the closet, Calvin. Get on in there. Now, you got all your stuff in there, huh?
Yeah.
You know what to do.
I'll take care of everything. Don't worry about it.
Kingfish! Kingfish!
Enter, friend.
Kingfish, what's all this top secret?
Hey,
What's going on here?
Keep your voice down, Andy. You're disturbing the stratosphere. I got a molecular reunion going on here. 2 tablespoons full of hydromatic acid.
Kingfish, you phoned me to come over here and
then I poured the hydromatic acid in the Baron Fitzgerald.
You told me to bring my stock. You got the money?
That bubbling at 100 degrees centipede. Look out, Andy. Don't get too close there now. Stand back, Andy. Look, Andy, ain't that beautiful?
Well, what is it?
Invisible glass.
Invisible?
Oh, it's slipping. It's slipping. Uh-oh, I'm gonna drop it.
Now we're up to 1966. Sidney Poitier stars in 3 pictures this year. I Spy is in its first season on NBC with Bill Cosby. CBS plays the first network TV show produced by a black, Harry Belafonte. CBS also cancels the reruns of Amos and Andy. Now, this wasn't just a snap decision. The NAACP had been trying to get the TV show off the air since 1960. After 13 years of reruns, it finally became a casualty to the civil rights era. The symbolic value seemed a major victory at the time. A mighty television network had actually bowed to the pressure from a private organization devoted to the betterment of black people.
One thing we were very much concerned with was the image that was being projected of our people. We felt that this was a false image, something that didn't represent us.
For better or for worse, Amos and Andy got the axe, and it's been off the air ever since. There are those who say enough is enough, but the NAACP maintains its position. Other black leaders don't agree. We asked Reverend Jesse Jackson about many things, among them Amos and Andy.
I think the record must show that they paid the dues that made it possible for those who now play roles of much more dignity to have come forth. First of all, they proved that blacks could act. They proved that blacks could entertain. They showed the dynamism of the black mind. By and large, I remember growing up as a kid watching Stephen Fetchit and watching Amos and Andy and Tim Moore. You know, black people had enough sense to appreciate them as funny people playing out roles. Their roles are so limited, we laughed at them and laughed at their roles. But after all, in the same period where all that was on radio and TV, out came Martin Luther King, out came Malcolm X, out came Adam Powell, out came Dr. Howard Thurman, Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, and so there was a tradition of our community of funny people who played even in these minstrel shows. But then there was another tradition. It did not dominate black life to the extent it has been projected to be. Even to this day, George, our struggle is for a struggle of balance to show the breadth and depth of the black experience.
I won't try to compete with the eloquence of Reverend Jackson, except to agree with him wholeheartedly. Black people have made tremendous strides in all areas of human endeavor. Not the least of these is show business. I remember those old days, too. I went through a lot of back doors so black performers can go through front doors today. And let me tell you, my friends, things are a lot different now, a lot different. Much of what we have we owe to a handful of pioneers. When Tim Moore, Spencer Williams, Ernestine Wade, Alvin Childridge, and Nick Stewart went before those cameras, there were no standards. There were no black shows. Everybody I knew watched Amos and Andy, and we liked it. But we didn't see it as the epitome of black life. We saw it as comedy. No individual or single work can speak for a people. What Amos and Andy had going against it is that it was all alone out there like an astronaut on the moon. Somebody had to be first. This was first, and now it's history. Can't we see it that way, if we can see it at all? Hollywood history has a lot of stains on it, but I don't think Amos and Andy is one of them. These early TV pioneers should join their fellow artists in a place of honor along with many others. Louise Beavers, Ethel Waters, Hattie McDaniel. Hattie McDaniel told someone a long time ago what it was like to be black in Hollywood. She was asked if she found it degrading to play one maid after another on the screen. She said, in Hollywood, I got two choices. I can play a maid in the movies for $700 a week, or I can be a maid for $7 a week. Let's face it, as a Hollywood Observer once observed, this is a town with people lined up to be first to be second. It's easy to be second if someone else had the guts to be first. Besides, as Jesse Jackson said, our struggle is a struggle for balance. And tonight, we've tried to present both sides of the story in a continuing controversy. Thanks for watching. We'll be right back to wrap it all up. This is George Kirby. Thanks for joining us. Now I'm going to sit back and watch some classic scenes.
Well, just what kind of fur is this anyway, Kingfish?
Andy, that's the rarest of all wildlife. The rare and beautiful and elusive mink.
Mink?
Yeah, Andy, just like this animal here.
That looks more like a fox to me.
Oh, Andy, that's a long-legged mink.
I seen a mink in a window once, but it didn't look nothing like this.
Now then, George, what was it you had to say?
Well, the same thing I said when I was in the 3rd grade. The sooner I get out of this school, the better.
Now, would you mind telling the court under just what circumstances you met the defendant?
Well, about 18 years ago at a carnival. I reached in my pocket to get my wallet and shook hands with Mr. Stevens.
I feel kind of sorry for the Kingfish. But you know, you can't much blame the Kingfish for wanting the folks down in Marietta to think he's a big shot up here. It's just human nature for everybody to want somebody to think that they is important. I guess that's what keeps a lot of us going in life.
George, it's only 12 o'clock. Why do we have to leave so early?
Well, honey, you know the night when we were dancing the rumba and I sideswiped Miss Van Pelt, I think I dislocated one of my vertigos.
Too bad, George. Get my coat. You're not going to get out of it. We need some money in this house, and it's your job to bring it in.
Honey, ain't I always been an adequate provider?
No.
Well, I was going to answer that question myself. And you know, Andy, every pilot got to have a 20/20 vision. So step right around here, and I'm going to give you a visibility test. Now, Andy, face the blackboard. Now, cover up your left eye. How much is 4 times 5?
20.
Now, Andy, cover up your right eye. Now, how much is 10 times 2?
20.
Well, Andy, you got a 20/20 vision, all right.
Oh, boy, a cup of coffee, please.
Yes, sir. 1 cup of coffee coming up.
George Stevens, do you work here?
Well, see, the thing is, what I mean is,